Hey everyone, thanks for joining Sikich Live number 5. We're not going to be exactly live today, but we do have a recording for you while we take a little break during the 4th of July holiday. Next week we will be back. We've got something special that Sikich has been working on, and we'll be announcing that next Thursday at 2:30. Don't forget to like and subscribe. That's the best way for you to get notifications on any of the platforms that you are watching us from. Thanks again, and I am going to give it over to Nicole. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.
Welcome to Let Me Interject. I'm your host, Nicole Adams, and today we're talking about moving from Dynamics AX to Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. So with me today, we have Debbie Altham and we have John Boatman. Thank you both for joining us today. Really appreciate that. So let's go ahead and just jump right into the topics because that's what we do here. Do you have to move to Dynamics 365 if you're on AX?
Well, the shortest answer is no, you don't, because nothing. I know Debbie. Nothing is going to stop with your system. It will keep moving along. Everything that is going on will continue to go on. But the different question is, should you? What are some of the reasons why you should move? And we're going to get to some of those later, I'm sure, around the support and where things are. But the biggest change is that the clients that are using any system at all for record keeping, just keeping track of what's been going on, going all the way back to the beginning when it was ledger cards and now it's electronic. And the access to the data now is better than it ever has been. And that's the reason you upgrade. You upgrade to get to that data and to move it. You can manipulate the data that you have now, but nothing like that could happen with D365 in the cloud.
I think also, if I was at a finance team and I was going, if I was a finance team worker, for example, or an operations director or a sales manager, and I went and started a job at a new place and I saw that they were using some older system that had not shown any sort of level of investment. To me, I would wonder whether or not my employer was really giving me the best tools I could have to do my job. These days we're used to being able to extract data really quickly, manipulate it, everything from BI visualizations. I mean, we all know that it exists, right? And that's in any one of those teams, be it sales, operations, or finance. And I think a little bit is by investing in these systems, it shows your people that you're investing in the tools they need to do their job. By not investing in them, it sort of says that, you're on your own a little bit. And I wonder whether or not that may be also another reason why people should think twice about, should I be on this, 10-year-old system or not? That's one of the, I think, really important, because particularly for us, we do a lot of work with manufacturers, right? And the one thing manufacturers say is it's hard to find and retain really top talent. And if that is the hardest thing that you've got in your business, these systems can play a big role in that. Someone who's managing a large manufacturing operation may very well need the tools at their hands to make good decisions, to be able to grow the business, get more efficient or effective at what they're doing. So, there are other reasons than just the reasons that you might classically look at in terms of, it's old and that it still does the job.
So the whole idea of using the platform as a differentiator, even within your hiring and even just to stay competitive.
Okay. Yeah, and it doesn't stop there. It's not only impressing your team that you're thinking about how they, they do their work. But what about customers, and vendors? Working with your vendors, if your vendors want to work with you in a way that's modern, and it's going to take a whole lot of duct tape and wire to fix up something that's going to work for them. But probably most importantly, the clients, your customers.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't demonstrate that you can use your systems effectively to give them the best level of service that you could possibly give them, we can't. I'm sorry, Mr. Customer, we can't deliver that because our systems don't let us do it.
Right.
I mean, that stuff doesn't work these days, right?
That's very true.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good segue. So we kind of talked a little bit about it in terms of, a differentiator, staying competitive, but what are some other reasons why somebody on AX should really think about making that move? Even though they don't have to, as John pointed out. Why should they want to?
Well, I'll kick off and kick the ball to John, but I would say one thing is that the skills, and we talked about talent before, and the skills in the market for people to help you work with the software are disappearing. Most of the top talent around the Dynamics products have moved to the cloud, moved to D365, finance and operations. You want to try and find a really, really good consultant who's really current on their knowledge and on workings and want to work on AX 2012, AX 2009. Good luck. John, what do you think?
I would say that because of the extension of the platform, don't move just because you're changing your ERP. Don't change just for that. The advantages of getting a better business intelligence, being able to create process flows with Power Automate. They talk about citizen developers, so more people can get involved with the kind of things that they need to do their job. Then, as expanding on what Debbie said about the customers, think about what Teams does. If you take a phone call from a client and you need to get on the phone with them and look through maybe it's a diagram, maybe it's a plan, maybe it's a quote that you just went through, just how quickly you can get into all of those things and still have access to all the information that you need that your ERP system is taking care of. So you move because of the broader picture, not just because you want a better general ledger or a better way to do journal entries or a better way to look at your shop floor control and your inventory. All of those things can be better, but you're looking for bigger bites of that.
Here, John.
Yes. So it sounds like AX is merely an ERP solution, whereas when we're looking at and talking about Dynamics 365, it's a platform. It's much more than just ERP. Is that correct? Or
when I only had AX, I thought it was a pretty good platform. Now I find out all bets are off. It's like completely different.
To Nicole's point, there are lots of things that are the best at their time. And the rate of change now is so much different than it has been. Mainframe systems would last for 20 years. Then the evolution of they go, and then the next thing you know, the client server environment was good for 6 or 7 years before you needed to make some big changes. And AX comes into play. So AX 4, 2009, all that legacy. The clients could get out there and get on that system for 10, 15 years and really make it work and build a great solution around it. But back to that rate of change and where we are right now, the cloud has made that different. It's more continuous improvement as opposed to go really hard, get it right, stop, hang on to what you have, and then go again. It's just continually moving through and making improvements.
Yeah, John, I think, Nicole, we were talking the other day maybe about a sports analogy where it was an ice hockey player who said, you skate to where the puck's going to be, not to where it is. And I think that's what we're thinking about now in terms of all of our applications in business. is that they need to be able to continually adapt and be agile and meet the business where it needs to be in the future, just as much as it needs to be able to support what you do now. And I think what D365 brings and the platform brings with Power Apps and, you know, all of the Azure services associated with the platform, it really does get you to look out into the future and try and be where you need to be.
It makes me smile to hear a Wayne Gretzky quote brought into the Let Me Interject series. That's great.
Was it? I don't even know who that is. Is he the guy, the guy?
The great one. That's the one that said that. Yes.
Great. So does being unsupported really matter? Because we're moving into a time right now. AX4 is no longer being supported. AX 2009 is no longer under support. 2012 is no longer under support. So really at this point in time, AX 2012 R3 is the only AX solution that's currently still under mainstream support, correct?
Right.
Does it matter?
So I'm just going to come in here and say that my dishwasher has been playing up. And I bought my dishwasher because I could get parts and service for it for 10 years. I spent twice the amount of money I did on this dishwasher for support and parts and availability of that support for 5 years more, or 100 or double the amount of time than I would have for a cheaper option. Now, if I'd got the cheaper option and it's playing up, what would I do? You know, would I look at the bill that costs to fix it from someone who they had to go and search and find the right person who knew the old model? They would have to go search, find the right parts. Maybe they do have the parts, maybe they don't. Maybe the guy comes out here and ends up, he can't fix it anyway, and I've spent all that cash. So a little bit about keeping it under maintenance is a little bit about what risk you're prepared to take. Are you prepared to take the risk that the dishwasher breaks down in the middle of Christmas, which mine did, and that you've got like 2 weeks of having to wash and dry mountains of dishes? Now, I know it's a pretty silly analogy, but it's the same. Do you want to take the risk of your ERP that you cannot find the right people, and it's not supported properly, and there is a urgent fix that needs to be happening, and unfortunately, because the developer has put it into retirement, you can't get the fix? So it's all about that risk. Now, there's 2 sorts of support. There's mainstream support and there's extended support. With mainstream support, what you're not getting is you're not necessarily getting hot fixes to functional changes. You know, maybe the system's been working okay. If you're not doing upgrades, if you're not changing anything, maybe you're okay. That's what I thought. My dishwasher was okay. However, the extended support is something entirely different again, and that's when Microsoft stop issuing security patches for the application. And I think that becomes far more serious. I would question whether any board, you know, any leaders, any owners of organizations would be happy to know that their core and essential business data, that the way they transact and do business is on a system that could be vulnerable to security issues. Today, more than any time in the past, you know, we have to be really concerned about whether or not our systems are secure. John?
You know, I wish I had a lot more to share on that, but I do think it comes directly down to risk mitigation and how you judge it as a business, as an owner, as a stakeholder, however that happens to be. Because if whatever that is, whatever you're facing isn't as important enough, whether you're changing out a dishwasher, you're changing out a system, it comes down to the timing of the change. None of these things are elective. People aren't just deciding to go make a change when they want to. You're not changing your refrigerator or your dishwasher just because you want to.
Yeah.
So it comes down to your planning and where those things are. And I believe that's a nice trigger that you mentioned there, Nicole, because that's what people are looking at. That's what they're identifying. They're trying to judge, what is that risk? What would I be taking on? What might happen? Those are great questions to be asking and to look through. And the answers are different depending on whether you're a 200-person manufacturer or a 10,000-person retailer. Everything's going to be a little different.
Okay, well, that's interesting. What I was wondering, because when you're no longer under mainstream support, they're not pushing up any sort of updates like maybe even tax updates, right?
Yep.
Or different things like that. How are companies that are no longer under mainstream support, I mean, how are they dealing with these changes? Do you work outside of the system to figure out the tax changes since they're not being pushed into the system?
They work outside the system. They grab it into an Excel spreadsheet, and if they can figure out how to upload the information in, they do that, or they do the calculations outside and then feed the system with the data.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Wow. All right. So if you upgrade, you don't have to do all that.
One less thing.
Yeah, that's right.
What to do. Okay, so we're on AX. Our viewers are watching. They're on AX, presumably. Their solution is going to be, sunset eventually here, depending on which solution they are on. Should they look at other ERP solutions on the market?
I didn't know there were any.
Wouldn't that be nice?
No. There's some benefits to staying in the Microsoft realm, I think, and maybe we should just highlight some of those benefits. There's not many people who invest as much in the development of the application. Unfortunately, Microsoft nor any of the competitors that might exist publish R&D separately, but I would definitely say that there are very few who are extending their ERP as fast, as rapidly, and with such velocity as Microsoft. So number one is when you're looking at carrying on with a Microsoft-based solution, you understand that you've got a developer that is investing heavily in your future as a client. So that's one thing to think about. The second thing to think about, and this is how I normally think about it, it doesn't really matter what system you're on. The ERPs are very similar. They'll all cut checks or not cut checks or shouldn't cut checks, maybe in the days of automatic banking, but they'll all do a lot of the same things. Is that the difference? Is it going to make a difference to change to a different ERP in terms of how well you can operate that ERP? And I would say maybe not. I would say that the value that you're getting out of your investment is extended by how you use the system and all of these peripheral things like John talks about, the platform things, the Power BI, the business intelligence, artificial intelligence, the machine learning add-ons, the citizen developer tools that are available for you to use, lower cost people to be able to do a lot more with the applications. It's about your overall strategy and approach. If it's product A or product B, would you be able to do that with product B with the strength of the platform? So that's a big pitch towards staying with Microsoft. There's a nice thing for AX users in that the features that moved from AX to D365 sort of moved in parity. It's sort of the same, you're looking at the same words on the screen, the same language is used. So that's an attraction because it's a little bit familiar. On top of that, you've got the Microsoft familiarity. So, you'll see more commonality between Dynamics 365 and Office and Word and Excel, for example. So you've got all that sort of comfortable area where people aren't fussing about trying to find things because it's intuitive. And then if you go cut right down to it, for AX users, there's a discount. So, you get some money off in terms of your subscription. Anything else I've missed, John?
You took one of the ones that I had, which was the license transitioning that Microsoft will help with for any customer that's current on their maintenance. And it's an attractive way to make the move. Any client that was out there on 2009 and moved to 2012, they saw how all of that can work. And Yeah, the last thing I might mention on it is if you're already an AX customer, if you're already on 2009, and even better if you're on 2012 R2 or R3, yeah, your system's ready for an upgrade. Not minimizing the effort that it takes to get there and to move, but to Debbie's point, if you're already on 2012, you're already in the Dynamics world, and you're already operating like that, there's less disruption to deal with if you're staying in the Dynamics world.
Mm.
Okay. And it sounds like not only is there less disruption, I mean, you're getting a whole lot more
Right.
out of the solution.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so one of the questions we get is, how can you deploy Dynamics 365?
Nicole, you say two different ways of deployment, and that's probably a point of confusion for a number of AX customers that have heard something called a hybrid. So I think certainly from our perspective, there are two options. There is on-prem, where you can either host that on your own hardware or in Azure as a hosted solution, or there is the SaaS model, which is in the cloud. So hybrid is not something that's been released by Microsoft. There's been talk about a hybrid option, but I don't know that it's even, on the horizon as far as I've seen. So on-prem, John, what do you think?
Well, there's some technical distinctions between upgrading from AX to D365 on-premise versus the cloud. At this moment, Microsoft doesn't have a supported upgrade path. I'm not saying you can't get there, but there isn't a supported upgrade path from AX 2012 R2 or R3 to D365 on-premise. There is the cloud. So there's ways to get there, and there's ways that we're talking about a supported approach that Microsoft has. So that's one distinction. Clients that are comfortable with the cloud and are ready to go, then the cloud is ready for them. There are customers out there, there are people out there that are still trying to figure out how secure is the cloud. What is this going to be good for me? Would I rather have those servers down just down the hall from me? And the more research that gets done, a lot of that reticence goes away. It starts to mitigate the risk again of what the cloud is. On-premise is definitely still an option. I have some clients that are seriously considering that, but they're open to the cloud and looking at different options. We haven't currently done anything except cloud deployments.
Yeah, so I would say, John, and that leads me to the point that I have no knowledge of numbers. Microsoft don't publish it, but I'm going to guess 95% of all implementations of Dynamics 365 F&O are in the cloud. So what makes those 5% or whatever it is, I'm making the number up, what makes them special? Why would it not be secure for those few people when it's secure for 95% of all of the other very large, multinational, people with as equally guarded secrets about their data? I don't know. I think really the only business reason I think that has a little bit of credibility is someone whose internet goes down all the time.
Right. Or if they're up on a mountain and they're a mining operation, or they're completely detached and they don't have reliable satellite or internet.
If you are a defense contractor that is required to use ITAR very specifically, and ITAR regulations don't normally touch on ERP, but if you had designs and drawings stored in your ERP, you may be thinking about government high cloud, which is an Azure hosted environment. But other than those scenarios, I certainly can't even imagine why you would look at being on premises. And just because of that percentage I spoke about, it does say that not only has none of the partner network got terribly much experience in an on-premises installation, but probably Microsoft support people don't either, just simply because of the volumes. The other point too is if you're on premises, you miss out on some really significant value from the platform. So, for example, some of the Azure tools, the connectivity that you get, there's some things like I think Task Recorder or some of the LCS tools aren't available for people on premises. So there are a number of functional weaknesses of the on-premises option that you will have to live with if you decide not to put it in the cloud.
Right. Analytics is another one of those.
Yeah, embedded Power BI. Yeah. So, should you move? Yes. When should you move now? You should move. You should think about your time frames just so long as you're off before extended support. I think that's really that should be the fall over. You get off before it's extended support. Don't look at anything else. Why would you? And deploy in the cloud, Nicole. There you go. All your answers.
Hey, well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll see you next time on Let Me Interject.